What's up, Steelers fans? It's Around the Burgh with Mitch and Shayne. We're back. We really hoped everybody had a good time listening last week. We're going to try to keep this a little shorter than last week, mainly because we were introducing ourselves last week. So we're going to spend more time just talking about the topics, maybe a little less time just talking about random stuff. Shayne, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, hopefully try to make it a little bit more Steelers focused now that people should have an idea what we're about. So,
Well, Shayne's putting on a brave face because I have to make an apology because last week I made a comment earlier that I guess went out over the air that I'm deeply ashamed of. If I hurt anyone out there, I can't tell you how much I say from the bottom of my heart. I am very, very sorry. I don't know if I'm putting on this headset again. I don't know if it's going to be for Around the Burgh. I don't know if it'll be for my bosses at Around the Block. I want to apologize to people who signed my paycheck to Around the Block, to Ronnie Hartner, to the people who I work with, or anybody I've offended last week. I can't begin to tell you how deeply sorry I am. And there's a deep draft left by Castellanos. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, I mispronounced Shayne's last name last week. I said Kubas instead of Kubas. So I just wanted to apologize to everybody in Shayne's family, his extended friends. Just want to smooth that over before we keep going with the show.
Okay.
And if you don't know if you don't know the reference to that, just look up Tom Brenneman, Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah. I think most of us should know a little bit about that.
Exactly.
All right. Well done.
All right. And just as I said, we're back on our BS of not talking about Steelers, so we're gonna get into it. This is gonna be the Ben Roethlisberger controversy episode because since we met last week, it's just been a heck of a roller coaster ride for Steelers fans, Ben Roethlisberger, the national media. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about, and this is before everything that came out the last 2 days, was Mike Tannenbaum. And for those of you who don't, Shayne, what do you know about Mike Tannenbaum and his background?
Other than the fact that he's been making a living of saying some random stuff on TV ever since he stopped doing this, he was a personnel manager in the NFL for several teams and the GM for several teams. So he should know better than what we're going to talk about today and some of the stuff that he's said in the past. But yeah, he somehow has managed to manage teams in the past.
Right. So Mike Tannenbaum's been the GM for the Jets, and he's been the executive VP of the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
And currently he's a talking head for ESPN. And, there's a lot that can be said about talking heads, especially at ESPN. But most recently, Mike Tannenbaum came out and said that he expects Ben Roethlisberger to be benched by midseason. Maybe not expects to, but he's like, oh, that's a very realistic possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Which, of course, it's driving engagements, driving clicks, it's driving views. That's what we're all trying to do, to be honest. But to make such an egregious take from somebody who was a professional in the business just is frustrating, especially given Mike Tannenbaum's history, specifically with Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah. Last year before the season, he said that Pittsburgh has the fourth best quarterback this year in the AFC North. Which was going into the year, it was obviously Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Ben. And Joe Burrow hadn't taken a professional snap.
Yeah.
But the good thing about Mike Tannenbaum is that, as the Steelers were going on their run, he came back on there. He's like, I might have been wrong. I messed. This was a bad take at the time. And wait, hang on, my producer's talking to me. Oh no, he didn't do that. So when the Steelers were on their 12-game win streak, he didn't bring it up again until they lost their first game. He's like, I was right the whole time. Mm-hmm. Ben is garbage. I told you guys in August, not mentioning once that he led them on a 12-game win streak at the age of 38, coming right off of elbow surgery. So,
yeah,
that was more frustrating to me, honestly. But, what's your take on the situation?
So like you said, it seems to be something with Ben. I don't know if it's just because he got beat by him when he was in the league or know what's going on, but you think he'd be more mad at Brady considering he spent all this time in the AFC East, which, that was a poor decision to do that twice, but whatever. So the point is with him, it just seemed like he was targeting him for whatever reason. And it's one thing, like if you want to make the claim going into last year that he was going to be the worst quarterback and you say it's because of the surgery and the age, it's like, whatever, that's fine. But for them to go on that 11-game start to the season, being 11-0, and then not saying anything to kind of go away from what you said or say, oh, maybe I was wrong, whatever. To wait until they started to suffer at the end of the season and wait for that collapse to happen before you even mention anything, you can tell that he's not in the interest of being ever really wrong. He only wants to make sure that he's right. So he's going to make sure he only engages with things that he was right about. And this is one of those things too. I could see this, like, if he doesn't play bad to start the year, or if we get off to a good start and Ben's playing well, we're not going to hear anything from Mike Tannenbaum. Like, we're not going to hear anything, good, bad, or otherwise, because he's going to wait until, if it does happen and if Ben starts to play poorly, then he'll come out and be like, I told you guys, they should bench him. They haven't, but they should, stuff like that. That's what I'm expecting to go, how this is to go. So.
Right. So I just pulled up the schedule. And so the Steelers have a bye in week 7. After that, they've got at the Browns, home against the Bears, home against the Lions, at the Chargers, at Bengals. That's kind of like your that's like your early November schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And, at Browns has been tough as of late. I'll give them that. Home against the Bears, I'm not worried. No. The Lions, I'm not worried. At Chargers, maybe.
That just depends on how they're healthy or their defense.
Right, exactly. Then at Bengals, and then a Sunday afternoon game against the Ravens in December. So like, I just don't even like. He's just would have had to have been terrible, and but of course, if they, by some. Honestly, I'm not sure they're going to make the playoffs. If they make it and, get bounced in the first round, I'm sure he's going to come on and say, man, I told you they should have benched him weeks ago.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the thing is he has it set up where he's not going to lose no matter what happens, because he'll either just not say anything if it goes well, or he'll wait till it doesn't go well and he'll jump back and be like, I told you guys, they should have just moved on from him midway through the season, started fresh. Let Rudolph or whoever, maybe he likes Haskins, I don't know. Yeah. Like put them out there. And like, the whole problem with it is, if you want to try to make the claim that Ben isn't good anymore, then there's plenty of things you can point at to say that. That's fine. But to come out and just say he's going to get benched halfway through the season without really saying anything other than he's going to be bad, like that's literally the quote. He's going to be bad and I expect him to be benched by the middle of the season. What's the reasoning behind that, other than you just think he's just going to be bad? Do you have a reason to think that other than just you saying it? Because I didn't see any real good analysis from him as far as why he thinks that, other than maybe pointing at the end of last year. But we're coming into a new season. Canada's taking over. I expect him to adjust things to try to avoid some of the problems that plagued them last year. The team, we obviously didn't get as much better as I was hoping we would, especially on losing guys on defense and all that. But to say that he's going to be bad just because, you don't know that until you get to see what this offense is like with him.
Right. And I think that, I think a lot of this does depend on the offensive line, which we discussed a bit last week. And, if they're bad and he's like getting hit a lot, then, that I don't think they would bench him, because it's like, oh, the offensive line is playing pretty badly, so we're going to bench you. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
The one thing, like, and also I just don't really see a world where Tomlin is going to like opt to bench Ben, and Ben will let him, because
right.
if there was ever a time, I think when this game was happening, I even tweeted this, like when they were playing at the Bengals on Monday night, and Ben was like completing like a third of his passes and for like 19 yards in the first half or something, I was like, okay, like if you're gonna bench him, do it now.
Right.
Like just see if Rudolph can get something going, because this is ridiculous. And then he stayed in for most, if not all, the second half. And he, started poorly in the Colts game and then caught fire. But if there was ever a time that it was going to happen, it was going to be that Bengals game, and it didn't happen. So, barring injury, something like that, I just don't really see it. I don't think it's very realistic to expect that. And I think that was just another bad take from Mike Tannenbaum.
Yeah.
All right. So like I said, this is Ben Roethlisberger episode. So we're going to get on to our next thing, which was the report from a few days, I think maybe yesterday, that said Ben Roethlisberger is entering the season on a new diet that somebody said will rival the TB12 method. Yeah. To which, when I saw that, I tweeted out and said, oh, good, it's July. Ben Roethlisberger is on a diet 10th, because I don't know about you, Shane, this is every year. Every year Ben's on a new diet. And I'm just like, okay, cool, sure, whatever. Like, I'll believe it when I see it, or I'll see it when I believe it, as Patrick Mahomes.
Right. Yeah, that was a weird thing with him. But so that's the thing, right, is with Ben, I hope that he's taking his body as seriously as he can, because he has to, right? Because the problem is, like, we're so used to Ben just showing up to training camp, kind of like doing whatever, having a good old time with himself, doing whatever. And then
that video of him, like, where he's like batting the
balls, that's what I was about to say.
That is like, every time that comes to my timeline, I retweet it. It's just so fun. That's like Bruce Gradkowski's out there like doing his best, like dodging things, and Ben's just like, screw this, I'm the starter, just bat
No,
them out of the air.
it's so it's like Ben's like, yeah, this is how I used to play, guys. Let me show you, and he
Yeah.
just like knock it. And I'm like, what do you that? Yeah, that I was about to mention, like that's what Ben does at training camp. He
Yeah.
goes, shows up, he has fun. He almost never really has to learn much of anything
Yeah,
because it's
like
pretty much always the same
this
offense.
could be different though with the new
It could be.
offense.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to maybe hopefully rejuvenate him a little bit is he's
Mhm.
going to be in a situation where he has to actually buckle down, and not only just the terminology is going to be the biggest thing because they want to
Mhm.
do a lot of this similar stuff for him, but the terminology is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be some, obviously dealing with Najee Harris, getting him up to speed, making sure that those two are on the same page with protections, especially. That's something that I think is going to be a big deal too with Harris. Is I think that if they can get him to be a good pass protector and use
Mhm.
him kind of as a decoy on those play actions, let him pass protect even, that's how I think we can open up some of the stuff straight down the middle as far as the passing game, because you get that internal pressure if we do struggle on the interior. If he can pick up that blitzer, that guy that we don't get, that could be how we get some of those bigger plays if we actually leave him opposed to putting him out.
Right. And I
Stuff
think
like
that, he's displayed a lot of pass protecting talent at Alabama. And like obviously
Oh
for
yeah, for
almost
sure.
for almost every running back is an adjustment in the NFL. But like I don't think there's been a running back in a very long time that's come to the NFL like as ready to like do
Do
everything
everything. Yeah, do
as he
everything.
has. Maybe like Damian Harris from Alabama, because he did like
Right.
everything for Alabama. But anyways, back to Ben's diet. So I don't think we really got a lot of indication as to what the diet is.
No.
So like is he cutting out carbs? Is he, not drinking? Is he, eating, doing the whole like Tom Brady, like no red foods or,
Whatever it is,
anything?
yeah.
Is he doing the Jim Harbaugh, no chicken because it's a nervous bird? I don't know. But there is a general thing about football players and diets that does concern me. And I think this was the big thing with Cam Newton is that when he like went vegan, he started getting hurt a lot more. Now, I'm not trying to say veganism is bad. What I think I remember reading is that when you switch that diet, if you're like, it changes the way your body is metabolizing things and how much protein you're getting in, and that can lead to more injuries. And I think it's different for everybody, obviously, but I think that if Ben is making like that drastic of a change this late in his career,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the juice is worth the squeeze, pardon the pun.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the concerns. I feel like because we don't know the specifics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's stricter than supposedly Tom Brady's diet, which I doubt. If it is, it depends on in what way, because there's so many different ways you could go about dieting or exercise. And obviously we know that like different players have different ideas. Like I'm sure you remember Harrison would spend like $100,000 a year on his body, like doing crazy stuff, making sure he's ready. And I'm sure Ben's doing some of that type of stuff as far as the conditioning and trying to get in shape and make sure he can get as much out of what he has left as an athlete, which unfortunately not very much. But it is a little late in his career at this point to really be prioritizing that if he is. So I just don't know how much of an impact it's going to make in this year. And I think the reason he's doing it most likely is because he probably knows this is probably the last go around.
Right. And so, I think Ben is trying to, it's maybe just a different strategy of shoring up his stock, which brings me to our sponsor, Symbol, which is the stock market for sports where you can buy and sell virtual shares of your favorite teams using real money. Each time your team wins, you earn a win payout. If your team loses, you lose nothing. Symbol offers trading for the NFL, NBA, and MLB with college football coming in the fall. Visit www.symbol.com today and use promo code SteelersATB to earn a $10 deposit bonus on your first deposit. That's www.simbull.com. All right. So our next story, Shane, like I said, why don't we kick it back to you for our third story?
Yeah, so I'm sure all of you guys have heard, especially if you're looking at just news in the offseason right now. Someone, I believe it was on, I think originally it was TikTok, maybe. I'd have to look.
That's correct.
Yeah, someone made a video showing that Ben seems to have a tell when he's in shotgun about whether or not there's going to be a run or a pass play. And the specifics, I think we'd have to pull up just to make sure I have it right. But I think if he has his foot back farther, it's a pass. And if it's not as far back, it's a run. If I'm not mistaken.
That's pretty much it. Basically,
Yeah.
if his left foot, it's pretty much if the left heel is lifted, it's
right,
a pass.
lifted.
If it's flat to the ground, it's a run play.
Right.
And so the TikTok dealt into this, and Steelers Depot did a really intensive study on it, and they basically found that it's definitely telling.
Right.
But the other thing they got into was basically, and I think this is a very fair thing, is that it's happening so late in the play that it doesn't matter. that like
Right.
it's too close to the snap to be making a difference.
And that's, I think we talked about that before the show too, where that's likely the case because realistically, even if you're a defensive player and you're looking for it, by the time you see it, you're not going to be able to react to it properly, at least not in a way that would be any really different than if you just let the play out. So it probably doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it is interesting that he has a tell like that, and I wonder if he even realizes it. I'm sure that if it's as telling as it seems to be, which I think they said is what 90 to 95% accurate.
It was like I
Yeah,
think it was a little higher for pass plays. It was like
right,
95 for pass, 90 for run.
right. So if it's really that severe, but like if that's how often it's happening, then I'm sure he probably knows about it at this point, even maybe before any of us saw the video that was made about it. But again, it just I think it just doesn't matter that much because if you really look at it from that perspective, like you said, and they said it too, if you can react to that as a defender, then you're already probably good enough. You probably don't need to know what the pass or
Right.
run is going to be. So,
So the other thing, and so last weekend I went and visited a acquaintance of mine who is a position coach at a D3 college,
okay.
and we were just kind of talking ball, and he was saying that like at one point his staff was invited to visit the Ravens facility and talk with their coaching staff, and John Harbaugh was talking to them, and he basically said, he basically was saying that in the NFL, everybody knows everything. And pretty much every game just comes down to like its talent, like whose talent is more superior than like one-on-one matchups. That's what it's all about. And like, you can, and it's a big, and some of it's scheme, like, there's always that meme of like Kyle Shanahan with the microscope and whatever crappy linebacker he's facing that week. He's like, oh yeah, I can get my guy who is better than that guy. But like at the end of the day, it's just about like who's better than the other guy. And the thing that I took away was like NFL teams know everything. They know everybody knows everybody's language, all their terminology, everything. They know all these tells. And Ben Roethlisberger has almost 20 years of tape on him. And he's obviously changed a bit of his like motion, his stance. He's changed a little bit. But like if you don't think that teams don't know this already, then I don't know what you believe. Like every team, especially the divisional teams, like they've noticed this and they know. But as you're saying, like it's so close that doesn't matter. And it didn't really stop them last year from again starting with the big win streak, and then obviously they faltered. And that wasn't because the team was like, oh, his foot's up, here we go, drop back, it's pass. Oops, foot's down, they're running the ball. Everybody knows everything, and I'm sure that the Steelers, it's they know that they know that we know that they know. Everybody knows everything. So like I just don't really see the point of getting all hot and bothered about this.
No, and I think like you said, at the end of the day, like the things to me that separate teams a lot of the time, there's obviously the talent level. That's clearly a big thing. How you execute whatever you're trying to do, because that's the biggest thing. That's why there's so much parity in the NFL sometimes, even by teams that don't seem to have all the talent in the world. Like I point at like the Dolphins a couple years ago when everyone thought they're going to lose every game. Or the Jets a couple years, I think the year before that, where everyone thought, oh, maybe they'll go on 6.
That was this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like when Josh McCown was starting.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they won like 5 or so games. Like teams, if they can learn to execute their system better than you can counter it, even if they don't always have the most talent, you can still squeak out a couple wins. And that's where you see a lot of the difference there. And coaching matters because that's how you get your execution up to pars with your coaching. So if it made that much of a difference, we would have heard about it before now. Like
and it would have been corrected. It would have been corrected. Like
Ben would not be doing it because he'd be like, I'm not giving the play away every time if I don't have to. Like that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So
yeah. All right. So we are 2 weeks away from the start of training camp, which is going to be in Heinz Field again. They're not returning to Latrobe, which is a shame. For those of you who live in the greater Pittsburgh area. Shane, have you ever been to training camp?
I've been to training camp twice. So I went to St. Vincent twice when they were having it. St. Vincent because I actually live less than an hour from both Latrobe and St. Vincent.
Okay, gotcha.
So I've been able to go to that one, and I was hoping they were going to be able to go back to Latrobe because that's probably where I'd be then for that.
Right.
Because I'd have been able to go. But Heinz, I'm not that much farther away from Pittsburgh, but it's enough that like I don't want to make a full day trip out of it where I'd have to drive back afterwards and do everything. For especially, sure. So unfortunately,
Yeah, I've been once, and I can't remember exactly when it was. I want to say it was when I was in like early high school, so like 2009-ish, around then. But it's a good time.
It is. That's cool.
I think they're still gonna have some of the stadium open, like if fans want to go in and check out the stuff in the stadium, which is pretty cool. So we're about 2 weeks away from training camp, like I said. And one thing that we want to talk about is like, what are the players that you are like most looking forward to seeing in training camp? So Shane, I'm going to kick to you and ask, like, what guy are you looking forward to the most at this year's training camp?
For me, I really want to see if one of the corners that we're hoping that emerges to be the third guy, whether it's as a slot or an outside. I talked about it before a couple of different times, but I want to see if one of them can really actually outright win a position
Mm-hmm.
opposed to just having to play there.
Yeah.
Because I actually did an article for the Steel Curtain about like Cameron Sutton's importance to the defense and
Right.
why bringing him back was so important, because it allows the coaching staff to say, okay, if the best guy in camp that isn't Hayden or Sutton, if he's an outside guy, Sutton can play mostly inside. If the best guy out of camp is more of a slot type, okay, Sutton plays mostly outside. He gives them the flexibility to look at this group as a whole and just say, okay, whoever plays the best, whoever's showing the most, they can have that third spot, and wherever they fit best, Sutton will fit in that, and that's in that spot that they're not going to be at.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be able to get their best five out there.
Right. That's the idea.
Right. People say that for like basketball. People say that for
Yeah.
offensive line. So I think that that's definitely going to be accurate for the secondary.
Yeah.
For me, I think that I'll do one and then I'll go into a different one a little bit. So I would say I'm really interested in the center battle, because that's going to decide a lot of things. And like I said last week, that I'm pretty sure Kendrick Green's going to win. But still seeing him duke it out with BJ Finney at the center position, I think is going to really, I'm hoping that the competition will get the best out of both players. I hope they both stay healthy, so it's not kind of just like, oh, this guy has to take the job because there's nobody left. The one other guy that I am thinking is going to, and I'm really hoping he does make an impact, is Quincy Roche.
Yes,
the 6th round pick out of Miami, who's a edge rusher. He played defensive end in college. He's going to play outside linebacker for the Steelers. I really liked him a lot in this draft process. I had him as like a day 2 pick, probably meant like mid late day 2.
Yeah, I had a third on him.
Yeah, 3rd round. So, him falling to the 6 was fantastic. I'm not sure that he is going to have the versatility that Alex Highsmith showed last year.
Right.
But I think that he's going to be able to fill in that role where he's like the first guy off the bench.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be able to fill that role really well, especially if they kind of ease him into it. Okay, we're going to bring you on some like long and late 3rd downs, those kind of situations where we can like maybe move TJ around, kind of have him be a confusing piece and then just have Crochet line up outside. So he's kind of the one guy that I'm very interested to see, like, what can he do in his first training camp? Can he be an impact player during his rookie year?
Yeah, and I think the big thing with him is, and the reason I had a third on him is because I feel like he's kind of not necessarily a finished product, but I think he's a day 1 capable speed rusher specifically. You put him on the outside, you let him just work as a finesse rusher, a speed rusher. You can get him on a big tackle that doesn't have the foot speed to deal with him.
Yep.
That would be perfect for him. I think that he will have a role this year, because he's definitely, at least right now, barring them bringing in someone in free agency that's left, he's definitely the 3rd best edge rusher on the team.
Yeah, for sure.
So he's going to have a role outside of just, because ideally a guy like him, you want to get him on the field on just 3rd downs, because I don't think he's going to be much of a run defense kind of player. I mean, he held up okay at Miami, but asking him to do that with his size and being a rookie is a lot. So I think we'll see him mostly on those later downs, like you said.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. We're going to wrap it there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We really hope you come back next week. Again, we're getting really close to training camp. We're going to try to be having some guests on the upcoming weeks, talk about some more rookies, some other things with the Steelers that we're seeing. So yeah, we're pretty excited to be doing this. We hope you come back next week. If we didn't do this last time, and we definitely have to do it. Shane, plug your socials. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so for on Twitter, you could definitely follow Steelers ATB for sure. That's where we're going to be posting a lot of stuff, hopefully, especially once the season gets going. We'll try to post some stuff there. And then my personal Twitter is just at Shane Kubas, so it'll be just my name, which you can see there. So.
Yep, I'm the same. It's at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE. And make sure you're following Steelers ATB, Steelers Around the Block. Look that up. We'll be posting our, obviously just tweeting out stuff from there. We'll also be posting links to the podcast where you can find it on wherever you get your podcast and even watch on YouTube. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We hope to see you back next week, and go Steelers. Bye-bye.